and we see a lot of kind of tie-in websites now with films, teaser sites that appear kind of months and months before the film's even ready. And yet Blair Witch was kind of one of the earliest that really achieved that, really kind of viral word of mouth thing.
Yeah.
Which for its time was, it was unheard of, really. So,
yeah.
Again, was that planned or was that accidental?
I'd love to say it was planned and premeditated, but it wasn't. Like I said, it was originally the experiment that I described in quite some detail, but then there was also a documentary that we made about that footage, and we shot all that stuff. And we were still editing. It took us 7 months to edit the film. And we were still editing, and a guy named John Pearson, who, if you've ever read his book, Spike, Mike, Slackers, and Dykes, I can highly recommend it. He was a producer's rep who did a lot of work with Spike Lee and a ton of Michael Moore, a ton of really great filmmakers. And he had a television show called Split Screen, and we met him at a film festival. And he said, we gave him a tape of a little sample of it, and he said, "This is really great." He's like, "Listen, I'll give you some money if you guys let me, show some of this on my TV show." And we did, and it basically shut down his website, because he had a website. And he called us up and he said, "You guys have shut down my server, you need a website." And that was like the Thursday night, and on Monday we opened BlairWitch.com. And that was about 6 months before the film showed at Sundance. So then it became like, okay, we've got this website, we have the documentary, we have all this footage, so what if we were, we're on the internet, what would we want to see? And fortunately we had really created a pretty rich mythology, and we had lots of things like Heather's Diary, and all of these things that we just put it on the web, hoping that somebody would find it.
They did.
They did.
They did. Kind of coming forward in time, we get to 21st century now, 10 years on, and there have recently been an awful lot of kind of genre films that have followed the same old design of cinema verity style, with the actors actually filming themselves. And we saw Wreck a couple of years ago.
I like it.
Yeah, which is a fantastic film. And then kind of more recently, like this last few weeks, we've actually had the Paranormal Activity.
Right.
Are you kind of proud that kind of these probably wouldn't have existed if you hadn't done your thing, or are they?
Yeah, I Cloverfield, Wreck, I really like that film a lot. Paranormal Activity, I think, is a good film. We certainly didn't invent the genre. There were definitely other people that came before us. A lot of Cannibal Holocaust, and the one we were talking about, the French film, Man Bites Dog, and there were plenty of other films that were horror-based documentaries. So I think it is wonderful. I think that we are fighting the convention of watching first-person films. It just gets a little old that you're like, just put down the freaking camera, because you fight that thing. I think it worked well for Blair because it was one of the first to use that, but also it was intrinsic to the whole idea of the film, and it was very organic to the whole idea of the film. And so, certainly as filmmakers ourselves, I don't think we would jump directly into a first-person film. Now, I really enjoyed District 9 and what they did in District 9, where it starts out as a documentary, and they use the conventions of documentary, but then that just kind of melts into really narrative. And I think there's a lot of future in that kind of filmmaking. And the movie we're showing tonight, Seventh Moon, is not a first-person film. We were experimenting with more handheld in what we did. I think we were okay successful. I think the movie works overall, but I don't think it's quite the technique. But we're actively refining, trying to work on that kind of storytelling technique. You like that? Yeah, actually, it was called the Burkittsville 7, and that is actually directed by a guy named Ben Rock. Ben created the stick figure for the Blair Witch. And Ben was also really involved in the writing of Curse. I produced Curse and worked with Ben really directly. And then yeah, if anyone familiar with City Cut Follies, really phenomenal documentary film that was made in the 60s about an insane asylum. Phenomenal, just really incredible. And that's really what inspired us for the Burkittsville 7. And really the credit goes to Ben. I mean, Ben did phenomenal work, I think, in that. But yeah, of the only thing out of the second thing that we were really not involved in, that we really embrace is that, and you know, mythology there we basically consider lore, or, you know, whatever. It's good. If anyone hasn't seen that, the Burkittsville 7, I think is pretty freaking creepy.
Did any of the actors suffer any long-term psychological damage?
Well, you know, look, we did one of these 10-year anniversaries for Blair in Los Angeles, and for the first time, Heather came, and Heather really had a hard time after the film. Unfortunately, the distributor decided to play always from the beginning that it was real, and you know, we never said that it was real or it wasn't real, but part of their marketing strategy was basically to bury the actors. We had said, yeah, that's a good idea as long as we come back and kind of support the actors later, and they never did. And so Heather had a really bitter feeling towards the movie because in my opinion, I think a huge part of this movie is Heather's performance. So she never really got the credit that she was due, and I really, you know, I wish I'd had more effect on that, but she got a real deal in a way. But she used some of the money that she had, and she bought a medical marijuana farm up in the mountains in Sierra, and has been very successful doing that. And she now, she came to see the movie for the first time, and about halfway through the movie I was sitting next to her, she turned to me and said, "Wow, this is a good movie." And I said, "Yeah, you were really good at this." She's like, "Oh my God." So I think, you know, I think the things that had us up were not directly attributed to the making of, you know, to the movie itself, but look, it's a hard thing. There were really weird things. People do the strangest behavior. You know, people stole gravestones from the Burkittsville, you know, graveyard, and, you know, stole the city signs. And at one point, Heather was doing a radio interview, and these people chased her. You know, and it's people crazy.
Okay, we're running out of time, I'm afraid, because we have another film on, but we're going to have to leave it there. Thank you so much for coming. I hope you've enjoyed listening to Ron speak about the film. Hopefully you're sticking around and maybe seeing some of the films in the festival.
Yeah, thanks for coming, guys. Really, really appreciate it.